Hey, I'd like to welcome you to another episode of the Mission Matters Marketing Podcast, your source for all things marketing. My name is Adam Torres. You can follow me on Instagram at AskAdamTorres. Keep up with my book releases, book tour schedule, signings, all that other good stuff. Always love to connect with you there. And as always, if you'd like to apply to become a co-author of one of my upcoming books, just head on over to the website, missionmatters.com, and click on Become an Author to apply. All right, so today I have Jenn Herman on the line, and she's a social media consultant and founder over at Jenn's Trends. Jenn, welcome to the show.
Hi, so good to be here.
Oh, man, so I'm excited to get you on the line. I'll tell you, a really popular topic on the podcast. So today we're going to talk about Instagram marketing strategies and a lot of business owners, entrepreneurs, and executives, including myself, that needs your help. So just to start out, though, before we go into that, let's talk a little bit more about Jenn's Trends. So tell us a little bit more about your company, please.
Of course, yeah. It started out actually as a blog. It was a hobby project for me. And then it evolved beyond that. I actually got strategic. And so now I do consulting. I do a lot of training, webinars, speaking events, that sort of thing. And I work with organizations of all sizes, everything from like solopreneur, mom and pop type organizations, all the way up to large global industries, charities, nonprofits, the real estate market, all that sort of stuff. And we work on figuring out social media strategy and especially Instagram strategies.
That's awesome. And I think that's a great transition. So let's just get right into this. So Instagram marketing strategies, where do you want to start with this big topic?
Which is a big topic, and we really don't have a lot of time, unfortunately. So really when it comes to using Instagram, if you are doing it strategically, if you are doing it with the right content and the right purpose, it can lead to more engagement. More engagement can lead to more traffic to your website, which can lead to more conversions. And absolutely, Instagram is a powerful tool for conversions. A lot of people kind of think it's just a fun platform, but when you do it well, that's what you can get. So that's, what I like to help people with. And, it's all about putting, like I said, the right content and the right strategy together, and then putting that as one cohesive end goal to reach whatever your conversion goal is.
So I know you've been, you've been in this business for a long time in social media terms. So meaning you're not just starting out. So that being said, I just mean, I think you've been around and doing this for the whole evolution or part of Instagram. So meaning At one point, a lot of business owners and other things, there may be some lawyers listening to this right now, or doctors or other things that are like, I'm not a beauty blogger. I'm not a fitness or whatever. Can you talk about the evolution and why people need to be paying attention to this? Even it's changed and people don't know that.
Yeah, well, and you're right. I've been talking Instagram for over 7 years. Back when it was, a completely different version of Instagram. There weren't business profiles back then. You didn't have stories back then. And it really has evolved.
Some of our listeners right now are like, what? No stories?
Right.
What? How? Our younger audience are like, what?
Survive?
Impossible. What did you do? I love it. I love it.
Instagram is honestly one of the biggest platforms out there. It's top 3 behind Google or YouTube, I guess you could say, and Facebook. So it really does have a huge potential for power to reach your audiences. Over 1 billion monthly active users. You're getting hundreds of millions of people watching stories every day. And it really is a powerful way to connect with your audience. People often come to me and they're like, well, my audience isn't on Instagram. I don't have kids in my audience. Well, I just like to clarify, I'm 40 years old. I am technically a millennial, and we all live on Instagram. And we're the ones with the buying power right now. We're the ones with the families, with the kids, with the mortgage payments, the car payments, the traveling schedules. And so if your audience is anywhere in that, 30 to 60 demographic, you can still target them on Instagram. It's not something that's, quote, just for the kids.
Yeah, it's not been for the kids for a while now.
For a long time.
I tell people that all the time. I'm like, it's not been that way. The kids, the young ones, they're doing something else already. They're not necessarily. They may be, but not necessarily as much as it started. So I'm like, you need to pay attention to this. So let's talk a little bit about content and the importance of that, because you did say that, and I know, and as you mentioned, and as my audience knows, we don't have time in a 15-minute episode to go too far into it, but I do want to at least get get the old cogs turning or whatever in people's minds on what they should be thinking about when it comes to content for them.
So first and foremost, all your content has to post with a purpose. And by this, you need to know what your end goal is. If your end goal is for brand awareness, if your end goal is to get more subscribers, if your end goal is to raise more money for charity, if your end goal is to sell more product, sell more of your services, B2C, B2B, doesn't matter. You have to know what your end goal is. Now, if your end goal is sales, that doesn't mean every single post on Instagram is a sales post. That is going to hurt you horribly because people are going to be like, stop trying to sell me stuff. I don't want to see it. So you want everything to augment that ultimate end goal, but understanding how to corroborate all your content for that end goal. So for example, you may have some fluff content. The content is there purely to keep engagement up because as you keep engagement up, your content shows up higher in that audience's feed. You're going to want educational content, things that are entirely value add to the person getting that content. It could be a tip, a tutorial, some background info, some advice, something you read in an article, something in your own blog post or your own podcast, whatever it is, it's value add to them, which again becomes highly shareable content. They start tagging people in comments that it's relevant to. They share it to their DMs or their stories. Then you have your actual sales content, which is meant to drive conversions. But all three of those different types of content work in cohesion to keep your content valuable to your audience, keep it well engaged. So when you have that sales post, it does actually drive conversions for you.
Oh, Jenn, you sound like one of the people that work on my strategy, like the other co-founder. I'm like, I know we need to have a purpose, but I don't care. And I'm
I
like,
just want to post pretty pictures.
No, not even that, because I'm just like, can we just put our updates there? And that's why my Instagram's bad, as the listeners are like, and this guy wants me to go to Ask Adam Torres. Yeah, you want to go see an account on how not to do it? Go there right now. And it's like, so here was my idea. And the true story, I'm like, well, we don't need it for sales. We don't, like, we have the podcast. That's our major channel. And we don't need it necessarily per se for brand awareness. So I'm like, how about we just start giving away stuff like books and other things like that? And I'm like, well, at least people will like get books and we'll just, make people happy on Instagram. Is that a strategy or am I wrong?
It's not a whole strategy. It's part of a
terrible.
strategy.
I know it's terrible.
But because people do want stuff, right? They do want the books, but if that's all you're ever giving them, they're like, either I don't need the book, I already got the book, I don't need to hear about it again. So it's not that you don't want to give them that, but you have to find other ways to provide the value add to them. And it could be snippets from the different podcasts. It could be, references to things. Again, it could be just tips and suggestions to get through a work day or to help improve their marketing, a list of upcoming, virtual conferences. Anything that is still a value add to them that doesn't detract from anything you're doing in the, product and service you have, but that gives you that much more to give them.
That's awesome. I love it. You're like, wait a minute, this guy invited me on a podcast. He just wanted to figure out how to do his Instagram. This is nonsense.
Half the podcast I go on. The host is like, I'm doing this selfishly. I just want to know how to improve my own Instagram.
That's hilarious. Well, that being said, so Jenn, awesome having you on the show. Final questions, two-part question. So if somebody's listening to this and they want to learn more about Jenn's trends, first off, what's the right type of client and or fit that is typically a good fit for your company and your team, number one? And number two, what's the best way for them to reach out?
So typically, I do actually a lot of work with B2B. I obviously have a lot of B2C customers, but I actually really like working with more of the B2B space in terms of Instagram strategy because it's not something people inherently think of, and it's something that I really love to come at. So whether it's, like I said, there's a real estate space I do a lot with retail, but I'd also do a lot with larger organizations that work in the B2B space that need that strategy. So if that sounds like you, or if you just think I sound fun and you'd want to hang out, feel free to reach out to me. You can find me on my website is jennstrends.com. That's JENNS trends.com. It's Jenn with two N's because I was born in the 80s with a bazillion other Jennifers. And then you can find me on Instagram, JENNS_trends. Same thing on Twitter. And if you really want to know everything that's happening in the Instagram world, come hit me up over on Facebook. Go to Facebook and search Jenn's Trends in Social Media. You'll see both the Facebook page, but you'll also see my Facebook group. And that's where I share all breaking news related to Instagram. It's a good, open, safe space to ask any questions and learn all things going on with Instagram.
That's awesome. Well, Jenn, really appreciate you coming on the show today and sharing more about your background, all the great stuff you're doing over at Jenn's Trends. And to the audience, as always, thank you for tuning in. Hope you got a lot of value out of this. If you did, don't forget to subscribe to the podcast, leave me a review on the Apple iTunes Store. And if you're watching this on our YouTube channel, Mission Matters Marketing, definitely give us a subscribe there, but also leave us some comments in the video. Love to know what kind of projects and things that you're working on. And Jenn, thanks again for coming on the show.
My pleasure.